I've seen you talk a lot about, and sort of this concept of buyer 3.0. Can you explain kind of what you mean by that concept, and how should revenue teams adopt this mindset?
Okay, so I'm super obsessed with this, and I wrote a whole series of 7 articles over the summer because I just think it's fun to put ideas out there and see what people think. So Buyer 1.0 was way back when I started in tech, right? Where people all of a sudden weren't buying software and putting it on their machines in their own closets or colos or what have you. They were renting it, right? And so we have this whole SaaS thing. Nobody knew how to buy it. All of the power was in the vendor side, where, people would show up and you do whatever demo you want. Like, people were just like wide eyes trying to figure out this new world, extremely vendor led sale. Then we had 2.0, which was about, like, in my estimation, about 10 years ago, where there was so G2 crowd and all of this kind of social sharing of information. LinkedIn was a huge part of that as well, where the buyers came in much more informed. And what I think people use the rule of thumb, like they're coming in 80% informed, and it became much more of a dance between the vendor and the customer. Now we're in 3.0, and so many companies live in that world. PLG, people are using your product before really even committing to it, right? There's so much transparency of information that I posit that 3.0 means it's all in the consumer, the prospect, the customer side. The power's on their side now. And the implications for that as sellers is that you have to come like armed for bear. Like, you have to know your prospect. You have to have really good, informed, researched guesses on what they care about. You absolutely cannot do spray and pray outbound. You absolutely cannot do the kind of dog and pony show you want to do in a demo. You have to show them what solves their problems. And you have to understand that the control is more on their side. And this is all about, like, again, every interaction you have with a prospect or customer has to give them value. So this is why I'm actually super excited about the Buyer to 3.0 era. Customer centricity is not optional anymore. It will be a differentiator between companies. If you are not customer centric, there's so much competition. ChatGPT can probably write the code to be your competition. And so how we execute and how we treat people is the differentiator. And I will say this too, shameless plug for Doc. My whole career, I have wanted something like Doc. Deal rooms are made for lawyers, and they're ugly and they're transitory and they're not user friendly. To have a place where you could do what I think is required, absolutely capture what the value is the customer's purchasing on first purchase, have mutually agreed success plans that name not only what the goals are, but on what timeline and how you will mutually measure it. All of these things, as transparency, is what this era of Buyer 3.0 is all about. And shameless plug for Doc, you've solved a problem I've been complaining about my whole career.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think, everything you are talking about, obviously we are huge believers in Doc, and sort of why we see this category of software taking off. And sort of one way I like to think about it is it's like we're shifting from this world of sales enablement, where it's all internally focused. How do we train the sellers and the sales team to buyer enablement? How do we better support our buyers? How do we be more consultative in the sale? How do we be like an authentic partner to them and co-collaborate around business cases and actually recommend solutions that will solve their problems, and not just kind of jam your software and your solution kind of, down their throat. And so, we think it's positive, right? Like, we think this is a good power dynamic shift. People don't want to just be sold stuff that they don't actually need. They want to buy things that actually solve their problems. And people have been burned too much. And so you really need that transparency in sale and to be, really consultative. So that's where we see Doc fitting in. And it's a good shift in the world, we think.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the time today, Wynne. This was an amazing conversation. I'm going to immediately go send this to our head of CS. So we could start taking some of these, learnings and applying in our own CS function.